Jimmy Kimmel Live is heading to Congress. That's right, Ted Cruz is going to put the FCC chair, Brendan Carr, on the stand to talk about Disney, ABC, and why the government might have said some things about the late night show that went far beyond the pale and lied about a national tragedy. Today, we'll tell you all the angles. And folks, there's way more here than meets the eye. Ladies and gentlemen, there is more here than it seems. And the drive-by dinosaur going extinct legacy media, they have no idea how to cover this. Oh, but we do. OutOfThatParkPlace.com, the website that you should be bookmarked to, and which has been cited by the FCC during their inquiries into the Walt Disney Company. Yeah, this website has been cited by the FCC. We're bona fide, baby. FCC Chair Brendan Carr to testify over Jimmy Kimmel's suspension controversy. This is by Marvin Montanaro. It says Federal Communications Commission Chair Brendan Carr will appear before the Senate Commerce Committee following remarks about Jimmy Kimmel Live that ignited a fierce national debate over free speech, political bias, and the role of regulators in modern broadcasting. The drive-bys are, of course, going to report this as being Brendan Carr being taken to task for going too far by saying things that he shouldn't have said about late-night TV and perhaps even infringing upon free speech, the bedrock of democracy. But ladies and gentlemen, that's not what's happening, because take a look at this. Carr's testimony, confirmed by the committee, which is chaired by Senator Ted Cruz, comes amid growing scrutiny of how government officials, broadcasters, and entertainment companies handle politically charged speech on public airwaves. Wait a minute here. Wait a minute. Gentlemen, if Ted Cruz is running the committee, and he is, and if Ted Cruz is the guy who decided to put Brendan Carr there to testify, me doth smell, I believe, the Republicans have a strategy about this. Now, I'm not here to take a political side on it, but I'm here to tell you that Ted Cruz is not intending to lose by putting the FCC chair up there talking about what happened with late night. I think Disney has a lot to fear here. Vash, I think this is a setup to get Brendan Carr up there to keep this in the news and to drive Disney down to its knees with conservatives and centrist moderates, etc., because I think that Brendan Carr is going to come up there and just lambast Jimmy Kimmel. At least there is a great possibility of this. What say you, Vash? Is this being set up on purpose by a Republican to get a Republican on the stand to really slam Jimmy Kimmel?
I'm not quite sure. That's what I read from it, because didn't Ted Cruz actually come out pretty early on and say that, Brendan Carr kind of said some things that were not what I would have wanted an FCC chair to actually say. I do believe Jimmy Kimmel actually played those comments from Ted Cruz speaking about Brendan Carr on his big long monologue right there. That's now #1 thing on YouTube or whatever. I thought that's how that was. It might be Ted Cruz just wanting to get to the bottom of it and wanting to show that Brendan Carr, while he may have said some things, didn't actually do certain things like Jimmy Kimmel is maybe describing. Jimmy Kimmel was still able to go back on. He was still able to come back, and he hasn't been federally regulated since. There have been some market forces at play, and there have been some network broadcasters and so forth that have made decisions on their own. But Brendan Carr hasn't actually involved himself. So that narrative that Jimmy Kimmel's attempting to set up, and I think the thing that Disney is trying to stand behind kind of falls apart when you look at the real details.
Well, let's take a look at that, because you're exactly right, and it's in the article. But I've got some thoughts on this. Senator Ted Cruz, though a fellow Republican, was among the first to criticize the tone of Carr's comments on his Verdict podcast. And I got to say, this ad is just some kind of special. On his Verdict podcast, Cruz said, "I think it is unbelievably dangerous for government to put itself in the position of saying we're going to decide what speech we like and what we don't. That's dangerous as heckarooski." Still, Cruz has acknowledged the valid frustration many Americans feel toward politically charged programming that blurs the line between news, activism, and entertainment, a frustration that Carr's comments seemed to tap into. Now, here's where I'm going to differ a little bit, Vash, and we'll go to Lauren, but you're willing, everybody can get a say in this. This is a topic that had been put to bed. Jimmy Kimmel is damaging Disney every time he goes out there because, and how do we know that, folks? because his ratings have dropped 85% that we know in the demo. So they're not having fun. Nobody behind the scenes is having fun at Disney with Jimmy Kimmel. And Brendan Carr clarified what he meant, and this, like, we all moved on. Ted Cruz, as a Republican, there's nothing to gain, only to lose if he brings Brendan Carr on to hold somebody in his own political party and his an administration that he's friendly with. If he's just bringing him there to harangue him for what he said, that isn't politically savvy. And I don't sense that Ted Cruz is an unsavvy person. So, Lauren, I wonder if this is an opportunity for Brendan Carr to come in now and explain and say, here's where Jimmy Kimmel crossed a certain line, or here's why we decided not to intervene, but to get Disney back in the headlines again. What say you?
I think I'm probably going to be in the minority here, because I think if this is the strategy, it's an unwise one. I fall into the camp that says that Brendan Carr should have kept his mouth shut, because what he did allowed them to make the claim that the government was influencing what was going on. And that was an avenue of attack that may have been untrue, but it was effective. And I think that giving them another bite at that apple is probably a mistake.
So you're saying that Ted Cruz is sort of bumbling into a very bad kind of a situation and might actually embarrass the Trump administration with this plan.
I'm just saying it's a possibility. Like you, I don't think that Ted Cruz is unsavvy, and he may have something up his sleeve that I don't know about, but I think it's a risky strategy to bring it up again. Go ahead.
I see this a little bit differently, Lauren. I see this as Ted Cruz wanting to kind of, I don't know, batten down the hatches, or take the talking point that Brendan Carr had anything to do with this away by questioning him and by providing some sunlight on this issue. I don't really see him as haranguing him just to harangue him, or even...
I'm not suggesting that. It's what I'm saying is that may be the case, that may be his intent, but who's going to be reporting on this?
Right.
Well,
right.
maybe Barry Weiss at CBS News.
That's interesting.
Isn't that fun? Isn't that fun? All right. So here's what I would say too, though. Okay, I get that this. What would you say? This electrifies both ends of the political spectrum, right? But what Disney needs right now is for this to all quiet down, because they're actually losing the middle over this, right? So there's this strange juxtaposition going on right now, where the middle both, and this is strange. It's paradoxical, but the middle, according to the surveys we've seen, the center of America both views what happened as an attack on free speech. What I don't think it is, but the middle believes that. Okay, so fair enough. And simultaneously, the middle dislikes and doesn't watch Jimmy Kimmel. So the thing for Disney is that if this gets put back on the airwaves and it's a new headline going everywhere, that although it's going to electrify the left for Jimmy Kimmel some more and turn him into a media martyr who somehow still lived, well, it takes the lid off this story again. And I think Jimmy Kimmel is just an atrocious kind of person that Disney doesn't want to have. They don't want him to be associated with them. They don't want him to be their mascot, right? He's not Mickey Mouse. He is atrociously bad. He makes Big Bad Pete look like nothing. This man goes out every night and just trashes political opponents. He's not funny. He's not humorous, Lauren.
Right, but who's they? Who are you referencing when you say they don't want him to be the mascot? Because I think who that they is an important point there.
Yes, okay, so that's actually more complicated. I'm glad you brought that up. So the deal there is, we have heard rumor and speculation. I didn't know we were going to go here, but I'm happy to do so. It's a great question, Lauren. We have heard that actually there's a divide inside Disney right now on how some of this stuff is handled. We have heard that Mr. Gorman, he's Morgan Stanley, right, Vash? James Gorman?
Yes.
He's been inserted by the institutions to try to right the ship at Disney and get it down the middle. We have heard that he has one way of viewing things, and that Bob Iger and Dana Walden have another way of seeing things. And Josh D'Amaro, who could be the next CEO, but he's Disney Parks guy, that Josh D'Amaro is just, ho hum, let's all get along because I might get to be the next CEO if I play my cards right. So you've kind of got these three different divisions right now, according to our sources at the House of Mouse and the way that they're proceeding with this and other things.
And if I remember right, Gorman was brought in personally to oversee how the transition was going to happen to the new CEO because of what happened during the last transition, correct?
And now he's been made the chairman of the board. That's correct.
Right. So I agree with you that he may have an intention to pull things back towards the middle, but I think Disney has the same problem that CBS has with Barry Weiss. It's like, okay, you brought in somebody to fix things, but you still have to deal with all of the institutional rot that is there. And those people do have an awful lot of power internally because they get to control their own output of their work and how enthusiastically they pursue it. You still have to have producers to produce whatever it is that you're selling. And they are ideologically aligned with Kimmel. And I think that presents a problem. If you bring this situation up in the news again, it's going to energize their base and present a possibility of an unforced error. That's why I think this is a risky strategy.
All right, let's talk about the risky strategy. Vash, if Ted Cruz puts Brendan Carr, the head of the FCC, in front of this committee, and we believe he's going to, Ted Cruz can call Brendan Carr and say, knock it off if he dislikes what he's doing. This is a public situation. So if we are to believe it, I'm not necessarily on board with this when you guys are more favorable to this as being a reality than I am. If we're to believe that Ted Cruz is bringing Brendan Carr on there to publicly decry what the FCC did, or at least to put him in the hot seat, let's say, what is the political strategy there for Ted Cruz? Because again, privately he can do that. So is that him trying to carve out his own niche for future elections?
A little bit. I mean, Ted Cruz has never really been on board with the Trump administration. He's flirted with it a couple of times, but he's never been truly on board. And I think for him, I think it's a twofold thing. One, it positions him as somebody who's, above reproach. Oh, I'm not necessarily for those MAGA types or even for the Trump administration. I'm for truth, justice, and the American way. On the other end of it, I think, like I said, it's not so much about haranguing Brendan Carr just to do that. But I think it's also like, look, listen, you said some certain things. Go ahead and clarify your positions. And did you do anything? Just putting to bed some of these issues that the left and specifically Jimmy Kimmel have made have made hay of. I think that's the route going right there, and I do agree with Lauren. I do think it's a risky strategy, but one that I would presume.
See, I agree with you guys. Way easier if this is after the midterms. Before the midterms, I struggle to go there. Lauren.
Yeah, I agree with Vash 100%. I don't think this is about haranguing Brendan Carr. I think the intent is exactly what Vash is saying. My problem is if you're trying to put this to bed, it's already to bed. What you're doing is exhuming the dead and giving the other side the possibility, because they're going to be the ones reporting on it. Kimmel's going to make hay out of this, and it's just going to reinvigorate that fight again. I think that at best, this just energizes both sides and you don't gain any benefit. It presents the opportunity for an unforced error, and that is the thing that I fear. I don't understand what Cruz's strategy is here, and that's why I'm saying I think this may be a mistake.
I think Pro is bringing up the midterms, I think very wisely so, because some senators who also get a chance to join in are going to love to get some sound bites against Brendan Carr and show their voters, this is why you should vote for me. I stand for freedom of speech, and here's me, going after Brendan Carr. That's a very interesting portion of this as well.
That's right. Well, folks, we call balls and strikes here. We've given you every angle we can imagine, and what you just have to imagine now is Jimmy Kimmel Live is going to Congress. So, Disney, whether you think you're going to win or lose on that one, get ready, because it's...
You know what? I don't even care this time.
Well, you should know that I'm preparing to...
Nope, I said I don't care. Whatever you're doing, I don't care.
You don't want to know that I'm auditioning for Pro's new rock station on New Rock Radio?
Nope.
You don't want to know that he now has Vacation Radio and New Rock Radio on Prelude Studios, which used to be vacation radio but is now so much more?
Well, maybe.
You don't want to know that I purchased this guitar and these sunglasses using the credit card that you humorously labeled for emergency uses only?
Wait, what? You did what?
Oh, see, now you're taking interest in my passions and abilities. Okay, so Jose, you're sure that we ordered the $10,000 drum kit before Floral canceled the credit card?
It did, Miss Drum Set. Check.
Nice. Okay. Oh, and the didgeridoo? That will increase in value so that Floral can send his kids to college?
Academia. Oh, that's it.
Why is there a didgeridoo on the front porch? I'm gonna bury that little troll.
Jose,
Oh.
Google how to play didgeridoo. We're gonna need to justify this somehow.